This is Pat McCormack and you're watching the Sport Icons.
Okay, so rather than do 2 or 3 videos on the main events for this past weekend, I thought I'd just do it as one. Not something that I would normally do, but we'll give it a go. Now, the 3 main events, of course, that was Joe Cordina versus Kenichi Ogawa, Stephen Fulton versus Daniel Roman, and of course George Kambosos Jr. versus Devin Haney. So we're going to start off with Joe Cordina against Kenichi Ogawa. Kenichi Ogawa from Japan was the reigning super featherweight IBF champion of the world. This took place in Joe Cordina's home city, home country, Wales, Cardiff. The atmosphere was absolutely electric, so well done to all the fans who turned out for Joe Cordina. Now, before we go too much further, I will say that I do find it very disrespectful when people boo and hiss when the opponent's national anthem is being played. I personally don't like that kind of thing. There's no reason for it. I find it very, very disrespectful. Boo the opponent, boo the man, but don't boo the national anthem of the country. No need for that, okay? Now, Joe Cordina, I felt that he was going to win this fight, but I felt that he was probably going to win it on points. I really did. So, to my surprise, when he knocks him out early doors with an absolute peach of a right hand, had me elated. It really did. Joe Cordina, I met him before in Cardiff, incidentally enough. He came across as a real nice guy. Now, what Joe Cordina did, and I'm sure most of you have already seen it. If you haven't seen it, the full fight is up here on YouTube, on the DAZN YouTube channel anyway. But he feinted to the body. He looked at the body, feinted to the body to make it look like he was going to go to the body, but then just went straight upstairs and caught Ogawa flush. Ogawa went down and he was out. Thankfully, he's okay, because it was a hell of a punch. Now, Tony Sims said that he's been working on that punch with Joe Cordina throughout this camp, and the one time he threw it is the one time it lands. So that's fantastic. Now, Ogawa, he came into this fight with a fierce reputation of being a big puncher, so Joe Cordina had to be very, very aware of it. And I think most people who knew anything about both of these guys would have felt that if anybody was going to knock out somebody, it was probably going to be Kenichi Ogawa was going to knock out Joe Cordina. Not that we've ever seen Joe Cordina in any kind of trouble before, but just based on the punching power. But Joe Cordina was the one who landed it and put Ogawa out cold. So Wales, the United Kingdom, has a new IBF world champion in the super featherweight division. I'm sure Matchroom are very, very happy, as Joe Cordina, he trains with Tony Sims at the Matchroom boxing gym. So Matchroom has a new world champion also. So congratulations to Joe Cordina. Now we're going to talk about Stephen Fulton taking on Daniel Roman. Predictable, very predictable. This fight going the distance with Stephen Fulton winning the fight. I don't think anybody would have really predicted anything otherwise. A couple of years ago, maybe something different, but I think Daniel Roman is the kind of fighter, for some reason, over his last few fights, he looks like he's on the slide. And I think that's one of the reasons why Matchroom didn't renew his contract, because they felt that he was on the slide. He was there for the taking at some point. But that said, Stephen Fulton is an exceptional fighter, no doubt about it. Is he a pound-for-pound top 10 kind of fighter? No, but he's good enough to win this kind of fight. So he retains his WBC and WBO world bantamweight titles in a fight that wasn't great to watch. I mean, it was okay, but ultimately, the idea of any kind of fighter is to win at all costs. Stephen Fulton decided to keep it long, decided to pot shot in and out, frustrate Daniel Roman, and that was pretty much the story of the fight. There's nothing really dramatic in the fight that I could really point to, but I felt that Stephen Fulton was always going to win this fight anyway, so this was no great surprise. Now, luckily for Stephen Fulton, Thomas Patrick Ward has now moved up to the featherweight division, so he hasn't got to avoid Thomas Patrick Ward anymore. He can continue having these kind of mandatory challenges, who, let's be honest, Daniel Roman should never have been the mandatory challenger. He shouldn't have been. Okay, but he was, and we have to get on with it. So, Stephen Fulton, congratulations on your win. Now, the big fight, the super fight this weekend, George Kambosos Jr. versus Devin Haney. This is for the undisputed lightweight world championship. Now, I felt coming into this fight that if there was going to be a knockout victory, it will come from George Kambosos Jr. If it's going to be a points win, it's going to come from Devin Haney. But me, like I think a lot of you, felt that maybe the judges may be a little bit more favourable to the home fighter. Not because it's in Australia. It happens here in the UK. It happens in America. It happens the world over. Hometown cooking seems to happen. But that wasn't the case in this particular fight. And if they tried to rob Devin Haney, I don't think they could have done, to be honest with you. This was a pretty one-sided affair for Devin Haney, where he won 10, maybe 9 rounds, maybe. Maybe we can give George Kambosos 3 rounds in this fight, maybe. If you want to be really generous, really generous, maybe 4. Okay, but that's not to say that the rounds, or many of the rounds that Devin Haney won, George Kambosos Jr. wasn't competitive in. He was competitive. And that's one of the great things that I do like about Australian fighters, boxers, is that you don't really hear about Australians ducking fighters. You don't hear it. You hear it from the Brits, you hear it from the Americans and whatever else. We all seem to duck certain fights. Australians, yeah, I'll take it. I'll fight it, no problem. Because in reality, George Kambosos Jr., he didn't have to fight Devin Haney. In fact, he was trying to get Vasyl Lomachenko. He could have had a tune-up, he could have had an easy fight, made some good money, guaranteed win, but he didn't. He decided to settle the undisputed score and had Devin Haney. Now, don't be wrong, he got paid a lot of money for this. Was it around 10 million Australian dollars or something like that? Good money, right? Now, this fight was a case of Devin Haney hit and not get hit. That jab was the difference in this fight. Now, I will criticise George Kambosos Jr. a little bit on this one, is that he didn't show too much urgency in this fight. There wasn't a lot of urgency. And I know afterwards he said that Devin Haney never really hurt me. I never really felt his kind of power and whatever else. Okay, so why didn't you put your foot on the gas in? Walk through his punches. I think Devin Haney was hurting him at times. But that said, Devin Haney is the kind of guy who will, if he gets a healthy lead, he'll hold on to it. He will. He's a pure boxer. He's not a brawler. He's not a fighter as such. He's not a knockout artist. He carries that power, he does. But he will win the rounds. He will frustrate you. That jab ain't no joke. It really isn't. And every time that George Kambosos Jr. was trying to close down the gap and try and land one of his famous hooks, Devin Haney was just throwing a jab in his face. Now, one-sided win for sure. Kambosos, he was competitive. Let's not say he wasn't at times. But at the same time, do we want to see the rematch? Not really. Would I want to watch that fight again? Not really. And honestly, I'm just being honest about it. I don't particularly feel the need to be seeing this fight again. But there is a rematch clause, and George Kambosos Jr. is going to activate it. But that said, Devin Haney can now join the list of this era's undisputed 4-belt holder champions. So no matter what happens in Devin Haney's career going forward, he's now in the history books. He is. Whether he loses his next fight, whether he loses his next 5 fights on the bounce, you can't take away the fact that he is an undisputed champion. Undisputed. So congratulations to Devin Haney. As far as America's concerned, of course, now they have another undisputed reigning champion, along with Jamal Charlo, of course, in that as well. But either way, I think that we have to give Devin Haney a lot of credit, and we have to give a lot of fighters a lot of credit now as well, because they are going for undisputed. For a long time, we were complaining that we're not getting undisputed fights. They seem to be coming thick and fast. They really do. So anyway, congratulations to Devin Haney. I think Devin Haney put in a very solid performance. Some people may criticise the fact that he wasn't brawling, he wasn't engaging that much. Listen, it's called boxing. Boxing isn't street fighting, it's boxing. Hit, don't get hit, win the rounds, secure the victory. And that's exactly what Devin Haney done. Did Devin Haney make it a boring fight? Yeah, kind of. But there was nothing really coming back from George Kambosos. He couldn't do anything. He just wouldn't move his feet, or couldn't move his feet. But anyway, congratulations to Devin Haney and the new undisputed lightweight champion of the world. Drop your thoughts below, click thumbs up, subscribe. Catch you on the next video.